You know, we allow contractors to do things because your business transaction, you know, is the same, as it warrants it. So prompt pay has an exception, a good cause exception, that says, I didn't pay the subcontractor or supplier or consultant. I did not pay them within the 10-day period because of this reason. It's
1096, letter D.
It's 1096, letter D, good cause exception. If the contractor has good cause to withhold a subcontractor's progress payment, bonded or unbonded, or retainage, identify the cause, the payment amount, when you anticipate to pay them, and write that on the certification. If KDOT, the engineer, that's us, determines there's good cause, then we're not gonna, you know, we're not gonna hold penalty. We're not going to, you're not gonna be in default to your contract. The reason for that is because there are issues between contractors and subcontractors regarding performance. You know, maybe there is a question with respect to the acceptability of your work, and we paid for it, but, we did. A couple months ago, we had one where the contractor, now they came to us and they said, I know you paid us for it, but someone else they'd had somebody else come out and they had looked at it and said, we're not sure this is really in compliance. KDOT paid for it because we thought it was and inspected it, but there was an issue. And so they held the payment because they hadn't paid the contractor yet, because they wanted to investigate, make sure it really was properly payable, which was good, because if they would have went ahead and, you know, paid and accepted payment, it could have been a real problem. They could have had a false claim. And so now ideally, you know, it would have been, they should have called in and said, oh, we think there may be an issue with that. But anyway, that's okay. The point is, there are things that happen, and there is good cause. There may be disputes for performance. There may be, again, legitimate disputes when they put up, there's damages, we have liquidated damages, you know, whatever the case may be. We will listen to those. I'm not the arbiter of disputes if they're good faith. But, again, we're gonna ask the question, why the payment wasn't, they have to identify the payment. Sometimes what happens, they don't do it. They say they paid, they do the certification, and then you find out they didn't. They say, well, we didn't pay because of this. It's like, well, why isn't it on the form? So then we decide whether, okay, how egregious is it, and, you know, the pattern, and we have discretion with respect to some of the damages. But if there's no good cause for payment, you're entitled to that interest if you as a subcontractor are entitled to be paid. But anyway, so we're gonna look at that, evaluate it, and sometimes they've been very legitimate, and then we've had situations where it's like, that's not good, we're not accepting it, you need to pay. So, but I need to know about it. So if you're not being paid, you need to communicate to someone from KDOT that you're not, so we can evaluate again whether it's a good cause. And there is nothing again here that prevents you from being proactive and saying, I haven't been paid, the contract requires me to be paid within 10 days. You haven't paid me. What's the problem? Why haven't you paid me? Then you have that documentation, and then later they want to come and say, oh, there's good, and they don't respond. And then later, 2 months later, when it comes to damages or something, or there's an issue, and they want to come and say, well, but you didn't do this, this, and this. You didn't tell that subcontractor there was a problem. Are we going to accept that? Am I going to say that's a legitimate dispute? No, I'm going to say you're making it up. You do that with claims. Give me your claim. You know, you submit it 6 months later, and you tell me something happened. If I ask the question and you didn't say there was a problem, and then you say it's a problem 6 months later, I'm thinking you're lying.
You're thinking it's not a problem.
I'm thinking it's not a problem. Exactly. So
nowadays, how much interest can you really benefit from paying people late? 30 days on the interest right now is.
Yeah, that's true.
There's.
It's just an annoyance.
we pay, it's 1.5%. You get 1.5% from us.
No, but if
The money they're making, keeping it in the bank and not paying.
Oh,
See,
I
that's
see.
the
Right.
point.
Right.
Just depends on how many contractors they out there that are doing it.
Yeah. Wow.
That's how big the bank is.
But anyway, so again, that is by all means, if you haven't been paid, ask the question. I haven't been paid timely, what's the problem? So sometimes the person at the head office may not know that the project manager person who's responsible for the payment didn't pay, or didn't record it right, or there's a mistake, you don't know.
Or they paid
Sometimes
the
the
wrong
right hand really
contractor.
doesn't know what the left
Yeah,
hand's
that's
doing.
happened too.
And sometimes
Paid the
it's,
wrong contractor.
sometimes.
We've gotten payment for other
Right,
people's cars
sure.
before.
So you don't know, again, just be correct, protect your interests. You have rights under the contract, don't be afraid to ask and enforce them, and to ask for enforcement, or to ask for explanations. So,
Are you gonna cover retainage?
And for
Oh, we
people
can,
that
real quick.
time frame, we're at 1:15, so everyone's careful. So if you need to get going, we totally understand. Carmen just got us mesmerized that we're
So,
so
yeah.
excited.
That's how she is.
Mesmerized time, okay, yeah, we won't do, we'll save commercial use of function for another day, another time. But let's talk about retainage. All right, we do allow retainage in a very limited circumstance. If you are an unbonded subcontractor, the contractor can ask for retainage. Okay, if you are unbonded, you know that bond. So, do you bond your work as a subcontractor? Or you ask for a bond? Okay, so if you, again, your business decision, because the money you pay for bond can be, of course, is in your bid and transferred to the contractor or subcontractor you're dealing with if you're a second tier. So if, however, some contractors don't require bonds. So what you can do, and some won't still do retainage. If you have a long relationship, I mean, I know there's contractors that have relationships with subcontractors that don't require a bond, and they don't hold retainage. There are contractors that require bonds from the subs, and if they get it, they can't hold retainage. If they have a situation where the sub cannot get the bond, then they have the right to retainage. But again, the retainage, and what you need to know about retainage is, it used to be a mechanism that was paid out at the end of the job. You get to the job, the contract's complete, the payment's made, and it's like, okay, we release the retainage, and we do that. Well, guess what? KDOT doesn't have retainage. All our contractors bonded. We do not hold retainage anymore. We did years ago. We had a system where payment was made, you get close to the end of the job, we would reduce the retainage, and then ultimately release the retainage on final acceptance. All right, we changed that because, again, well, federal principles kind of changed, and then state law, and we decided as a matter of policy that we did not need to withhold retainage because we have bond protection. If I have a contractor who doesn't perform, I've got a bond for the amount of the contract. So I don't need to hold retainage, I'm gonna collect from the surety if I don't get the money from the contractor. And that's the purpose behind bond, so it's a guarantee. It makes retainage then, again, unnecessary. And the federal principle and what happened with, and it really stems from and started through the DBE program. Federal law now says you can't hold retainage under the unbonded situation. Because the federal principle was, what was happening is you had DBEs weren't getting paid. And because, and other subcontractors, I mean, it applies to everybody, but it really came in through the DBE regs. The prompt payment issue arose out of and came in with the DBE regs. But it's applicable to everyone. So, which some people don't realize, but it is. If you read the regs, it's the program and prompt pay requirements for everyone. But it's located in the DBE regs because DBEs were not getting paid. They do the work, and you might do the work up front, and it's a 2-year project. And you're not getting retainage until the end, and you're done with the job, and that's money. And so someone figured it out and said, okay, we've got to change this. And again, it's applicable now, even under state law, Kansas State Fairness and Public Construction Act that limits retainage, because again, what they're not going to do is let contractors or owners, not let owners or contractors, oh, that's fine, thank you, take advantage of, keep people's money and take advantage of that retainage in order to, again, not to have people paid. So KDOT, again, determined we had the bond coverage, so we did not need retainage to protect KDOT. And then, again, now there's this federal principle with respect to payment as well, Fairness in Public Construction Act, there's the Fairness in Private Construction Act, and it all deals with this issue of retainage and how you can use it and not use it to manipulate and keep people's money. So under contract, however, if you don't have bond protection, then the concern is that, as a contractor, if I pay you everything and then you're gone, and there's a performance issue where I have to do rework, I've got to come back against you and have something done. So I lost my security. And that's why the unbonded subcontractor, the contractor can withhold retainage on an unbonded subcontractor. Again, we have contractors that don't require bonds. We have some that they want retainage, they'll have retainage, they may not ask you to bond. if you want to, and it's easy for you to get bonding, and it's inexpensive, propose to the contractor, I'll provide you a bond. If they say, I'm gonna hold retainage because you're unbonded, I'll provide you a bond. Because then they can't withhold the retainage. So you have the ability to come and say, I'll bond the job, and contractually, then they can't withhold retainage. So, I don't know, that's a business decision on your part, but again, it's an option you have. I don't know whether the retainage issue and what they do, there is a limit, and the, so the bonded, yeah, let's see. If and even unbonded work, this is important. The unbonded subcontract work is still considered complete when KDOT pays 100% for the item. So again, even when you're unbonded and they can hold retainage, when you are done with your work, that retainage has to be released. It is triggered, payment is due upon completion, and if they don't have a good cause, i.e. if there's no performance issue, and we've paid for it, we know about it, the contractor, that's prompt pay kicks in, and you're entitled to that payment of the release of that
Because
retainage.
KDOT would not have paid it if it wasn't approved.
Right, well, yes.
I mean, pretty well, in theory,
In theory, that's right. We believe it's acceptable. Now, I'm not saying that we haven't had situations where something's in place, you think it's acceptable, you know, the payment marking starts failing, or, you know, the concrete cracks or something, you know, where it then becomes an issue. But no, overall, yes, we pay because we have the certifications, we've watched the work being done, the certifications are there for the material. You don't have any reason to suspect that it wasn't done correctly. It's inspected, we've measured it, and so we pay. And yes, even on an unbonded work, so that you do not wait until the end of the job and get your money. The contractor cannot do that. It
Does-
violates all kinds of,
Does the unbonded subcontractor have to request payment of retainage?
no. You should. You protect yourself.
Right.
Be, again, you know, this
And
isn't,
that falls back to the companies that have somebody else doing the payments that
Right.
they don't
yeah,
understand.
I mean, you
and they
should
don't
always
know
protect
contracts,
yourself.
you know.
Never assume. I think, and again, it's just, I say, the more proactive and active you are, the better for you. As a business, whether you're a DBE, whether any kind of contractor, but especially as a DBE. And I think that, again, then your contractors you're dealing with, because let's face it, in this day and age, I'm sorry, the reality still is there's still a lot of contractors with the perception that, oh, I gotta use a DBE in order to meet goal because there's a federal money requirement. And, you know, that you do substandard, not saying you personally, but the DBEs do substandard work, but oh, I gotta do them, I don't have a choice. Educate them.
Yeah.
Now, for those of you who have been in business for a long time, you know, you're not under that, but I'm sure you know other DBEs, and it's like, oh, I gotta pay, or a contract attitude, it just, you know, it's, well, I'm gonna say what it does to me, but anyway. It's like, you know, cause there's performance issues, yeah, and there are DBE and non-DBEs that have performance issues. It's not isolated to
Right.
DBEs. And there are DBEs that are very good companies and perform very well. You know, show the contractors you do. And part of the way you do that is how you communicate with them, you knowing what your rights are, you asserting your rights and being, because I'll tell you, if you come across as controlling your business and knowing what's going on, what do you think they're gonna think you're gonna do when you get out there on the job? You're gonna do your job. You're gonna do what they need to do and you're not gonna be a problem. So again, the more you educate them, the better. The better for you. And it's like within this.
But under the DB peer review, I have found a contractor that had paid the retainage on everybody except the DBEs, and they had not paid. And I said, why have you not paid? Well, they didn't request it. I said, they're not required to request it, you need to pay it. They had it paid before
And
we
that's
were
the
done with
affirmative
the
obligation.
process.
And that would have been, you would have been entitled to interest, the DBE would have been
Yes.
entitled to interest. Because that payment obligation is not, it is affirmatively on them to pay when they're paid.
So Deb, do you do that with every contractor, you just kind of spot check, or?
It's a good tool if somebody would say, oh, by the way, you might wanna look a little closer at.
Oh, okay.
That way I
So you
don't
kinda
have
work
to
on
say, well,
tips.
Nicole said I need to come look at your record. I can use it as a tool.
Oh, okay, gotcha.
And,
I just
but
didn't know how
no,
that
there's no,
process
I
worked.
mean, because we account for every penny on the contract from beginning to end, and the volume of all of that is just pretty overwhelming.
Yes.
So there's no way to do every contract.
That's what I was
But,
wondering, okay.
but if you can fine tune us on where to look, or a certain contractor, or, that's helpful. It's a learning
I
opportunity
hear
for
that.
them.
Opportunity to modify your behavior, as we say. Amazing.
Now, I did bring for your viewing pleasure to state's contract, the actual regulations that are applicable to
We'll just
what
call
we
you.
talked about. Or you tell me, but if you wanted to call me, because it's real, you know, it's, again, it's, sometimes, I think it's, you will see when you read them, how much of our specification is law and based on law. It really isn't just KDOT coming up with a bunch of stuff.
Yeah, we do this because Carmen said to.
Yeah, there's some of that, obviously.
And then if I remember correctly, federal law trumps KDOT? So, I mean, if there was ever a dispute between something
If
that
there's
KDOT
federal
might
money.
have and.
If there's federal money in the job.
Okay, if there's federal money, okay,
But as a general rule, so yes, if there's federal money in the job, then federal law controls.
okay,
However, in certain projects, even with federal funds, state law, because it allows state law to control
okay.
procedures, letting procedures and different things like that,
Yes.
okay? So, however, just really as a general rule, KDOT, we administer our state program the same way as our federal, to not have two different programs. So it is rare that we're going to have a law that is different or inconsistent with the federal. So it just, we just don't. I mean, there's a few exceptions. When you get into funding for like, some of the non-highway related, like transportation enhancement type jobs, pedestrian bicycles, certain things done in certain cities and counties. Again, they're letting statutes and things they can do, but, we still fundamentally, there's, you know, we still do have, I guess the power of the purse, or whatever, so. As a firm, you can, as I describe it to the city sometimes, so it's like, I want to see, because sometimes we do have, we're administering and they'll have federal funds, or even state funds. I mean, we give state funds, the legislature allocates state funds to, the locals for, you know, system enhancement type projects, or, and there's really, it's still money coming through the state. And so in terms of fairness and bidding and things like that, even when the city or county can do their procurement, and so maybe they have a rule that says you can hold retainage or that you can't, we would look at that and see if that rule is okay in the context of the funding mechanism that was given, or in accordance with the state mechanism that was given. And so we would evaluate whether that is okay. It may be their procedure is okay and allowed, but sometimes it's not. And sometimes they'll do things and make decisions, and I say, okay, where's your contract? You know, what information did you give to the bidders? And, well, we didn't give them that. Well, then you can't make bidding decisions based on information you didn't put in your procurement. So, anyway, we do evaluate those, but for your purposes, it would be rare that, so for the work you're doing in the specs here, our specifications are included, our standard specs, and it would include the measurement and payment. It includes the DBE. If it's a federal aid job, it includes the DBE. If it's a state job, it doesn't. A prompt pay is still applicable, even if it's not a federal aid job and there's no DBE requirement. So, and that would apply to any construction job, a city, county-led project as well. Or not city, county, sorry, let me speak. KDOT-led projects will have KDOT standard specifications in those projects.